please consider liking and subscribing. So let's discuss the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'll be honest, I'll try to keep this as short as possible because this game absolutely stunk. And the only thought that I have after watching this game is the 7 seed in the NFL should not exist. It needs to go back to 6 teams per conference. Because you look at the Steelers who play the Chiefs, and I'm recording this before they play, that game should not be a thing. Like, the Steelers should not be in the playoffs whatsoever. And then you look at the Eagles, they should not be in the playoffs. Like, those two teams are literally in the playoffs because of those two new spots that are open in each conference. I don't like it. We are going to get a huge blowout. It feels like we're going to get we got a blowout here between the Buccaneers and Eagles. And again, recording this before the Chiefs game, it's going to be a blowout probably between the Chiefs and the Steelers. Now, in the NFL, I know they say anything is possible, but this comparison is the best one I can think of, and it kind of feels like the college football national championship, if you ask me. Like, it really, really does, because I know in college football it's the top 4 teams, but the first round, it's going to be it just feels like every year it's just a blowout. Like, this year, it was a blowout, and then, it feels like in years past, it's always a blowout, and then we know who the top 2 teams are in college football every single year, so they just need to go back to giving those 2, top teams, put them in the college football national championship, because we know who they're best. In the NFL, it's a little bit different. These teams, teams 1 through 32, in all honesty, not a huge gap, but really 7 seeds going up against a 2 seed in each conference, when years prior they would have gotten a bye week, and we know those teams before are really, really good. So I don't like this whole 17 per conference thing. I really, really wish they would go back to 6, because, and again, I don't want to sit here wild card weekend every year and just get blowouts, because I mean this 2-7 matchup was a blowout, and again, like I said, I'm recording this before the Chiefs game. There's a good chance that one's going to be a blowout too. And I mean, you have the Philadelphia Eagles like kind of making it interesting. Like, we all sit there and hope that it's going to be a good football game at the end of the day, and we're like, okay, the Eagles got it to 16 points. It's a 2-possession game. But we're also, at least for me, I'm like, okay, I'm giving myself false hope here, because in the playoffs, you want something crazy fun to happen, and it didn't happen in this game. It was just a pure, dominating performance by the Buccaneers, and even the Buccaneers at times, it felt like they were giving the Eagles life, and the Eagles just could not capitalize on a single thing, because the Eagles had like 4 third down sacks in this game, and they could do nothing with it. And one of them, when the Buccaneers were deep in their own territory, they get that 3rd down sack. They have to punt. The punt wasn't very good. They would have gotten good field position, and then Jalen Reagor muffed it. And Tampa Bay was like, okay, we've kind of hung around a little bit too long. They blow this game open. It was like, 24-0, 31-0, whatever it was. And, we knew at that point, after that muff pump and they scored, the Eagles had no chance. I think it would have went up 24-0. And you look at Jalen Reagor, he was drafted before guys like Chase Claypool, who people don't like, but I think would have been better. Definitely Justin Jefferson, obviously, much, much better. And Jalen Reagor was not good in this game. Honestly, was up and down all season, wasn't particularly good all season. But the Eagles, when it comes to the draft, I mean, they should be in a good spot when it comes to the draft. They have 3 first-round picks, so they can do whatever they want with those. I expect them to make huge moves in the offseason. Like, if you don't make huge moves in the offseason with 3 first-round picks and you don't get better as a team, there's a problem with your team. And there's a problem with your front office. There's a problem with everything. So if you don't get better in the offseason with 3 first-round picks, there is something majorly wrong with your organization. And I think, you could start the Eagles. They need a quarterback. I don't think Jalen Hurts is the guy of the future, if you ask me. Maybe a little bit, harsh for him. It was his first full year starting, so I mean, you got to give him, I guess, a little bit of leeway on that. It was Nick Sirianni's first year as the head coach of the Eagles, which he did a really, really good job, getting them into the playoffs. But again, was only going to be there because of the 7 seed thing that happens in each conference. They started 2-5, end of the year 9-8. Like that can't go unnoticed. You make the playoffs, but I think this 7 seed thing is going to give a lot of teams some false hope, because, teams are going to sit here and they're going to be like, oh, we made the playoffs. And then because they made the playoffs, some of these organizations are going to be like, okay, we have the pieces to make the playoffs in the future, when really they don't. Like, they don't have a future, because you look at the Eagles, they're going to be probably the team that doesn't make the playoffs next year, especially with the way that it's done right now. They need a wide receiver, like keep Devonta Smith and Dallas Goedert for sure, but they need more receivers. And their defensive wise, like I said, it kept them in this game as much as they possibly could. I thought the defense played as well as they could have with the situations they were giving playing Tom Brady, the Buccaneers. And, the Buccaneers had a whole bunch of injuries, which it didn't affect them in this game. But it, once they go up against, a more legit opponent, whether it be any of the remaining teams in the NFC, Cowboys, Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, whoever's left, it's going to be tough for them. And again, I'm recording this video in between games, so when I upload these, keep that in mind, because I want to make each individual one, and I want to do it right after the games, and I don't want hindsight to change my opinion of this game, because the Eagles were not good in this game. They had life, it felt like at times, but the Jalen Hurts interceptions when they were driving late in the first half, missing wide open receivers, not even throwing to wide open receivers. It was not a pretty game by Jalen Hurts, at all. Don't get that misconstrued. I mean, he is young, but it wasn't a good performance. The Buccaneers, I mean, they played a really good game, but again, if I'm the Buccaneers, I know that, some of these teams aren't as bad as the Eagles, and getting 4 third down sacks isn't going to win you a playoff game in the future. Like, you do that against another team that has a better defense. Literally, the rest of these teams have a fairly solid defense. You do that against the rest of these defenses, it might be trouble for the Buccaneers, especially with all the injuries, and 50% of their total yardage for the season are gone. Antonio Brown obviously gone. You have Leonard Fournette out. You have Chris Godwin out. Like, you have a whole bunch of key pieces out, and that, having key pieces out like that, more injuries on the offensive line, and the defense, which at times even struggled to tackle. I know it was garbage time, but Todd Bowles was really getting upset about that, which, I mean, I understand. The Buccaneers, I mean, it was a good win for them, but at the same time, I'm not betting against Tom Brady in the playoffs. It's a dumb idea. If I was a bettor, I simply just wouldn't bet on a Tom Brady game, because he can lose, but you also know that he can pull something out of his ass and then end up winning the Super Bowl. So betting against Tom Brady in the playoffs is a very stupid idea. I think we've learned that enough as a society. But this game as a whole, if we look at the referees, obviously they were terrible in this game. There were some plays by the Eagles they made. They were called back by some dumb holding penalties. And then you look at the roughing the passer penalty on the opening drive of the game. We were just like, okay, it was bad. It was stupid. The referees absolutely stink this year, but we come to acknowledge that. And at this point, I don't know what it is. It's not even worth complaining. I don't even know why I'm complaining about the referees. They've sucked all year. They're just going to continue to get worse. So we just have to recognize that the referees are going to have some impact in some of these games, because they did it in the Raiders-Bengals game, and they did it a little bit in this game. So it is what it is. The referees stink. This game as a whole, again, not a fan of the 7 seed in each conferences. I wish they would get rid of it. But that is my recap of the Philadelphia Eagles and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Give me your thoughts down below of what you thought of this game, and I'll see you in the next one.